where when we talk about progress, we also have to talk about who is defining. In your life journeys, start with what you have accomplished, because often we focus on what are the constraints women face, how they are vulnerable. I want to focus on, despite anything and everything, how proud you are for your accomplishments. So let's start with the scholarship that you achieve from day one, where you are told that as a girl you cannot do this. Trust me, all of us, the first words we hear is what we can do, what we cannot do. And the point is, we continue to define what makes sense. It's the meaning-making process and the struggle where we have to communicate to the world how we are evolving. So this reflection is about the journey of becoming, in spite and despite of everything, and then contributing to the world. So any one of us, or you can start. I'm looking at Malika because she already had a response to what I was saying. So please go ahead and begin your reflection.
Good morning. I have never, ever been told, you can't do this because you're a girl, ever. I was very fortunate in coming from a family which was not only gender neutral, it was caste neutral, it was religious neutral. And it was not till I got to college that I was made aware that either gender or caste or religion was an issue at all. I was also very fortunate of going to a school which followed exactly those principles. In school, I was the only girl on the football team and nobody thought it was funny. The best dancer was a boy and nobody thought that was funny either. Today, if you ask me what I am most proud of and what I think is my greatest success, it is that the very things that I was reviled for, speaking out, speaking against injustice, taking on the government, taking on the police force. I was reviled, I was arrested, I had to go underground. And these are the things that today I am the most respected for. For me, the most important achievement today, for me personally in my life, is not as an artist, but is as a human being. When dozens of young girls come from villages, from cities, from universities across the world, and hold my hand and say, thank you for being who you are and for saying what you have said, that for me is the greatest achievement.
May I add to that? I think what Malika said is at the heart of where we are as a human race. 90% of the women in this room have never been told what they can do and can't do. Am I right? Can we have a show of hands? Is your life being dictated to you? Please put your hands up if it is not being dictated to you. Right? Ladies, your life is not being dictated to you by somebody else, right? You're making choices on your own. And this is the amazing thing, that the women who've been able to make it are women who've had the freedom to make their choices, and sometimes those choices are good, and sometimes those choices are bad. But the fact of the matter is that today, this year, I will be completing 40 years in advertising, marketing, and media. That's a 40-year journey, and believe me, the amount of shit I've had to deal with in my entire career, I don't want to share that with you, right? But the fact of the matter is, even the men have to deal with that shit, right? So I am one of those big believers in the fact that the minute we start putting on gender lenses on anything, we become limited by those lenses. And while I'm always very happy to talk about women's empowerment and what women can do, I think the lesson that I have learned and the experience I would like to share with everybody else emanates from a statement that Alec Padamsee, one of my, favorite bosses and gurus, once made to me. And we were having a discussion about some people we were looking to hire. And he said to me, he said, what lies between the legs does not matter as much as what lies between the ears. And if we truly believe that, we can cope with all the challenges and all the curveballs that life sends to us. And if at the end of your career, like Malika, you have, tears of gratitude and joy and satisfaction because you have transformed lives, then I think you had a very successful life and career.
I'd like to share 2 moments of my life which have really, I feel I have, this is which has set me to the path which I went today. One point of time I was 5 years old and I was in Ranchi. Ranchi is in Bihar at that time. And we were walking with a whole lot of us, lots of children and lots of adults. And there was a young girl, a British girl sitting there talking English, speaking in English. Of course she was British, she was speaking in English. So the adults turned around and said, look how good English she is speaking. They said, children, you must learn English. I said, yes, that is fine, but ask her to speak Hindi. If she speaks as good a Hindi as I can, then I know she's an intelligent girl. You see, the whole thing of what is important and what is not important and a comparative frame makes it very difficult. The second incident which I will share with you is at the age of 18. I just talked about my marriage. The day I was getting married, and then the next day I was leaving home. As I said, I had not worn a sari before. I had not dressed up like an Indian woman before. And at that point of time, the bindi, which is now ready-made available, we had to put it with a liquid and make it round. And of course, I could not do it round. So I told my aunt to put it for me. I said, put my bindi on for me. She said, no, ask your mother. I said, why should I ask my mother? You put it for me. And she just would not put it for me. And I became so adamant that she only had to put it for me. She would not put it for me because she was a widow. And then my grandmother came and all my women, family members came and said, no, we'll put it for you. I said, no, she has brought me up. I've stayed with her for 2 years. She has bathed me. She has washed my hair. She has looked after me. She cannot be called the she cannot put it for me because she's a widow. And I think I stood up for that, and I have stood up for that right for women across time. And when my husband passed away, some of my best friends called me and said, Indira, are you putting on a bindi? I said, yes, I am. She said, thank God you have not stopped wearing it. And I think this has been my struggle in life, that that rules have been defined. These are social systems. Social rules have been defined by somebody in few thousand years ago, which are still prevalent today and which are not right. And there have been many occasions where I have fought against this time and time again, including when my father-in-law died. I made sure my mother-in-law had the bindi on. It's just a symbol, but symbol says something a lot. When my father passed away, they said my mother cannot eat mangoes because my father loved mangoes. I went and bought 4 dozens of mangoes and I said, you have to eat it. And I went and bought new saris that day for her and said, you've got to wear these saris because your children have given it to you. And these are some of the, being in the profession is one thing, but there are so many small things which become inhibitors for women in their lives to just take a step forward. When I started working, and I had to be in the IIM by 8:45. And at 8:45, my mother-in-law would say, or just when I was leaving, take me to the temple. I said, I'll take you tomorrow. She said, no, I want to go now. I said, now I have to go to work. And then in the evening, we will have a big battle of tears. Okay, she's become like this. She's, just because she's going to IIM, she thinks she's above every norm of the family. And almost every day we used to have this issue. But I could break through it because the only difference was that that time she was living with me, but there was a time when I went to college in Bombay where I was living with her. And every time it was my time to go to college, she said, there are guests coming, so you please stay home. I said, no, I have a class, I have to go to class. And the class was just crossing the road, and the college was just crossing the road and behind one building. And it used to be a massive struggle for me to leave on time, to be on class in time. 5 days I gave it up, college, because it was such a difficult process. Every morning to fight everybody, all the elders, and be able to stick to what I wanted to do. So I gave up college after 5 days because the pressure on my husband was so much that he fell sick. So that was the most legitimate reason for me to give up college. So I said I gave up college. But then we went to America, and then I studied. So we had to make some very drastic choices to continue to aspire and do what I wanted to do. And I think this is not my story. It is many, many stories of many, many women who want to study but cannot study because of the social constraints and the family beliefs. I think I'm
So I think we often ask the question of whether these issues exist also in what we call modern societies or Western societies. And is it really what's between our ears? And are we over it, or are we just living a past of inequality? And I so much wish that the answer would be yes, that this discussion is so irrelevant and we are just glorifying our past. And it's not. And it's not, because social hierarchies and social structures are very robust and are very, very hard to change. And in many cases, we as women assimilate them. We don't even see the inequality. We don't even see the lack of opportunities we have because we are used to it, and we think that that's the way things should be. And I can tell you a story that I shared yesterday with Ernest. I don't know if he's here. You all did a simulation, or many of the students did a business simulation. And it's a simulation that's called conscious capitalism, and it's one of these marketing strategy simulations, but you also have to take care or consider other factors, such as being friendly to the environment or fair employment. And he asked me my opinion as to whether to add to this feature, to this simulation, a feature that enables the team, they can decide, whether to pay women employees less. Because that's, what happens. And then it's up to the team to think whether they want to do that or not, or fight about it, or see what are the long-term consequences. And he said that he really wanted to do that because he wanted people to face with this issue, but then, he's coming from America and you have to be very politically correct, and people told him, no, 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 you should not do that. And I said, you should do that. You should give this option. And let's, because tough topics should be discussed, and tough topics should be talked about. And if this is something that managers are facing, let's have it on the simulation. Maybe we'll do better in the real life. And so that's something that happened yesterday. But I think for me, I also grew up in a family that was very egalitarian. We have all girls in our family. So I never heard that you cannot do this and you cannot do that. And I faced it for the first time when I was already quite old, and I I was married, I had a baby, and I was the CEO of a company, of a startup company in Israel. And it was this critical time in the life of a startup that you have to go around the world. It was a business-to-business company, and actually find customers and meet your customers, and you have to travel. And for me, it was clear that if I have a young baby, and I'm breastfeeding the baby is coming with me. Right? So I'm traveling, the baby is with me. And the things I had to hear from my board of directors, half of them were women, by the way. You cannot do this. It's business meeting. It will be unprofessional. You go to Deutsche Telekom, to France Telecom, to Lloyd's TSB Bank. These are respectful organizations. And you're coming with a baby, and what if the baby cries?
Yes.
And I said, you know, babies cry. And these people there, the men, they have babies. So if they don't hear their babies crying because someone else is taking care of them, they will hear my baby crying. And this is really... And this is what happened. So I went to these meetings. You should have seen. I mean, the baby is now 19, okay? And you should have seen the passport of Omer, the baby. It was like full with stamps, and I was traveling with him. And we had the meetings, and then we had this amazing concept that maybe we do the breaks instead of, you know, setting the schedule. So we'll have a break between 10 to 10:30 or whatever. Let's have the breaks when the baby wants to eat. And let's have a flexible schedule. That's all, you know, we require. And it happened. And Deutsche Telekom is still a very successful company. And also Lloyd's TSB Bank. And so I think that for me, one of the things that we should do, or we try doing as women with awareness, is to understand that in some sense it's a world that was created by men for other men. Sometimes these men are very nice, most of the cases. But it's not a world that was created for us. And one of our missions to succeed in this world is to shape things that will cater our needs. Okay? So I always talk, we are in a conference, let's have conferences where the women have more bathroom, you know, space, so we can spend our breaks networking and not queuing for the bathroom. Let's have, let's be friendly to young moms who want to travel to conferences. Okay, we don't want to tell, and then, you know, everything will be much more welcoming, and we can use what we have between our ears and flourish in a more in a way that's better suits us. So this was the thing.
I want to point out something before I make my comments. Is that there are 4 mics, but we automatically share the mic.
I did, where the 4?
3M, that was. I want to make a couple of comments. One is that I totally disagree with Alec Padamsi. We are privileged in even asking ourselves the question whether what is between our ears is more important than what is between our legs. 99.9% of Indian women certainly, and Asian women probably, do not even have the right to ask that question or any other question. So theirs is entirely ruled by gender. The fact that they are born a girl is what rules their life. That's one. The second is I wanted to say, I agree with you completely. You know, I went into what is considered the world's greatest theater directors production, where everybody was very proper nursing my baby, and the baby then became the place to escape to when the director became impossible. So every actor would suddenly be found near the baby because the director was being impossible with them. So I believe you saw that baby dance 2 nights ago.
Yes.
Brilliant. He was.
You were talking of symbols. Today, the most educated and sensitive, sensitized Indian women wear symbols of slavery that patriarchy has given us. Why do we wear the Mangal Sutra? Why does, I mean, if the Mangal Sutra is so Mangal, why doesn't the guy wear it? We wear this chain, at least in Christian weddings, both of you wear a ring or don't wear a ring, but it is given to both. Here it is only tied around the girl. And in states like Karnataka, the 2 half circles have to be left open till you are impregnated with a male child. If you only have daughters, you are not allowed to turn the Mangal Sutra back. You have to advertise the fact that you have not been able to birth a son. Today, because of television serials of Balaji, more and more women are wearing this. That's a dog collar. To have sindoor in your hair, and as I said, if it was such a great idea, men would have appropriated it. The fact that it is not, that the dog collar is only for, because I belong to him. If belonging was so important, men would certainly have done it as well. If they haven't, so I have to ask every woman here to actually think of these traditions. What is it that you are taking on? Don't say, oh, sab log karte hai, isliye main karti hu. Because it can very often, I look aghast at women who are CEOs of banks who say, you know, I have such a nice husband, he allows me to do whatever I want. Who is he to allow you? Do you allow him to go to work? These are so many questions. As you said, Preeti, success, what is the definition of success? Who defines what success is? It is just now defined entirely in male terms. More money, bigger car, bigger house, 68 floor house. That is what success is. Perhaps it's not, and perhaps men need to get out of those tight ropes which are strangling you into thinking that is what it's about. I am told all the time, Malika, had you concentrated only on dancing, you would have reached even more. Yes, but would I have been happier? Would I have been more satisfied? The fact that I'm juggling careers, the fact that I'm in 5 different careers at the same time, and bringing up children, and doing exactly what I want on my terms, makes me much happier than being the most awarded dancer. So every single word that we use needs to be looked at, whether it's success or whether it's wealth or whether it is leadership. Perhaps leadership is not about leading. Perhaps leadership is about being cooperative. Perhaps leadership is about pulling the best out of each one and being able to accommodate it into a continuously morphing group. So I think the questions are so very fundamental, and we mustn't fall into the trap, men as well as women, into thinking that these words and concepts that have come down are the gold mark. They are not. Otherwise, we would have been so much happier as a society. We would have had so much less mental health problems. We would have had so many fewer suicides. We are not. So the very definition of society that we have defined over the last many hundreds of years needs a complete change and a complete looking at. Thank you.
Malika, I completely agree with you, because I think it is the women who have taken in the cultural codings, unexamined, untested, or even thought through. I will give you my example. See, today I'm wearing bangles, I'm wearing jewelry. When I go out and I say my husband is no more, they look at me up and down. They see my red bindi, they see my red bangle, which is not supposed to be done. It's not supposed to be. And I'm saying these are the cultural codings so deeply rooted that first time when I was putting on the bangle, red bangle, my hands were shaking. When I was putting my bindi, it was going like this. And I shouted at myself in the mirror, stupid woman, do it. And I did it. You see, it is so deeply coded that it becomes part of the life and does not let you free yourself. It is how will the society free itself from the chains and the shackles which it has tied itself with. Thank you.
They want to hear you clearly.
Yes, yes, sorry. I think we have the cultural codings are so strangulating that we can't give it up. And it is re-emphasized time and over again in films, in televisions.
In advertisements.
In advertisement, it is completely that. And I think what had happened was, I'm putting all this on because it's my father who came and looked at me after I had joined IIM. I had taken off all my jewelry, saying, how can I go and teach in IIM with all the jewelry? He came and looked at me and says, what has happened to you? I said, why I'm teaching? He said, you look like a man. I said, I'm wearing a sari, how would I look like a man? So he says, come with me. So he took me to the shop and bought me the bangles and said, put this on, these are your favorite bangles. Why have you stopped wearing them? See, it's not the femininity part. Women need to be feminine, women need to be gracious, women need to be beautiful, but it is not at the cost of professionalism. I will not be a professional. And what happens is women just give up their spirit of a warrior by saying that women cannot be aggressive. But if I look at my cultural models, men have flowers, men wear jewelry, men wear jewels all the time, and they have a sword in their hand, and so do women. Women are dressed beautifully, they have a sword in their hand, and they have flowers in their hand too. You have to be both. And we seem to cut off half the things of our lives just because some few thousand years, somebody decided that this is what women are and this is what men are.
At the risk of running foul of my panel, I want to sound a divergent note. It's not that societies are not patriarchal. Okay, it's very clear that societies are patriarchal. It's very clear that social structures are not engineered to treat women as equals to men. That is a fact. I just choose to look beyond these facts. I think a time has come for all of us, and I am again making this point, that the women in this room are extremely privileged. You would not be here if you were not the top 10% of whichever world you live in. Okay? Recognize the fact that with privilege comes responsibility. And I think this is a collective action that we need to take. Being privileged, being experienced, of course we've gone through all of this. Of course we've had kids. Of course we've had problems with, bringing them up and, having to nurse them and juggle our jobs and juggle our homes and, mother-in-laws who refuse to let us do what we wanted to. The fact of the matter is, I, as a woman, choose to believe that I am better than any man. Because these are things that men don't have to work with. Women have to deal with. And we deal with them, and we deal with them successfully, and we build careers, and we build families. Everybody applauded at Malika's son and the wonderful performance he put up. She has had a dramatic role to play in that young man becoming the artist he is. Or Renana's 19-year-old kid, right? So as women, we are builders. And we need to take that responsibility and that privilege to heart. Of course, we have sexual harassment in the workplace. Yeah. Of course, we have all kinds of problems. I mean, each and every one of us in this room has had a pass made at them, has had somebody grab your butts, grab your boobs, maybe show you his penis in a public place. We've all had these experiences. But the fact of the matter is that we women are like phoenixes, okay? We rise from the ashes. And my only suggestion to all of you is, Dr. Seth talked about survival. The fact of the matter is, it's not just survival. It's survival with style, it's survival with passion, it's survival with with joy. And for me, it's been a fantastic journey. You know, like Malika said, it's not just about your job, it's about living a rich, multi-layered, multifaceted life. I run an environmental NGO called Vanashakti, and we are taking on the government every single day with litigation, with activism. But you know, the fact is that I have the courage to do that simply because I choose to. Nobody has asked me to do it. I do it for myself. But I come from an industry where for years, and this is, Renana, your point, women have lower salaries than men do. All around the world. All around the world. I was recently doing some work looking at this whole area. In WPP, which is one of the biggest holding companies in the world, women are at 38% lower packages than men. 38%. This is a global issue. It's not an Indian issue. It's a global issue. And we all need to consciously, in our own way, whenever we have the opportunity, do something about it. All I want to say is, yes, there is doom and there is gloom around us. But each and every one of us, men and women, need to be a ray of hope for other women. And to say to them, come, we can help you. And that is my only complaint with women. Women don't mentor other women. Okay? Men are very good at mentoring.
That's part of patriarchy.
No, it's not. No, it's not part of patriarchy. It's because we get so caught up in the minutiae of our lives that we do not contribute to other women. Okay, now we'll have a debate about whether it's patriarchy or not.
So the best part of being on a panel with 4 women is I knew they are never going to agree with each other. So essentially I had to just keep quiet and listen to the wisdom and the debate. But I think the question has been raised that women have to work very hard. Even when you want to make a choice, you have to convince at least 600 to 600 people, why am I making this choice? And while making that choice, and I think every single woman sitting in the audience would agree with me that we always have to feel guilty. You make choice A, you have to feel guilty about you didn't do B well. No, what I'm saying is, as a mother...
Society wants you to feel guilty. It's
I know
not
that.
to say,
I know, but I'm saying it's not that simple, because guilt is given to you, and getting that guilt over. The point I'm trying to make is that it's not easy for us to make choices because they are questioned by society, institutions. So the question that I want to now pose to all of you, and then I do want to take 5 minutes for audience to ask you question, is we all belong to institutions. Many of you head institutions, including all of you who are leading in many ways. What can we do better? And I'm saying this to men and women sitting in the audience, to recognize the struggles and the difficulties that women do face while balancing domestic spheres, personal spheres, professional spheres, children's lives. There are ways to recognize that struggle and create better institutional cultures, structures, and policies. And I can say that I'm very glad that at MICA we are taking that question on and doing everything. And it does take an effort for an institution to say, I am going to define success differently. We are going to define success just to organize an event to bring 4 women on a panel, because for us that matters. And I'm grateful to AMA and AIM and SHADE Consortium. When I requested, Professor Shet immediately said, yes, we must make sure to have all women panel and start addressing what are women's journeys and how can we, in institutional ecosystem, create better ecosystem so that the next generation of women, they will continue to struggle, but at least institutions and society will provide safety net and will provide mentoring. That is so helpful. So my question to you is, what are some of your insights, and just 1 or 2, in terms of what can we do better as institutions?
So, as institutions, so first, 3 years ago, when I started coming to these conferences. I talked to you, Jag, I think it was at your office at Emory, and you told me about this conference, and I looked at the speaker list, and I said, oh, okay, nice, but I'm not impressed, because there are no women speakers. And you told me, I still remember this conversation, you told me, yes, we invite them, but they don't come, because women are more busy. And I said, well, it's not an excuse. Invite me, I come, and also invite them twice. Okay, tell them it's important that we have them. And I'm so glad that 3 years after that, there are more of us. I want much more, but we'll get there. So, yeah, so that's I think one thing, and being aware, and just, I think awareness is so important. Just ask these questions. We had this, we had several panels yesterday. Did we have at least one woman in each and every one of them? No. Well, that's something to do for next time. We're an institution. When we give our awards, could be nice to give at least one award to one woman in one conference, okay? No, not giving, you know. When we, so here's another thing. When we know, I study social networks, okay? And something that women are less good at is doing this mingling and social networking, because it requires, you know, going out and speaking. And so let's create more embedded opportunities for our doctoral students to communicate. Let's have assigned seats in the table, to encourage female students to join. And I think that's my 3 points.
Yes. So very quick, 1 minute, because I do want to give at least 5 minutes to the audience in terms of time.
As an arts institution and as a very female centric institution, I have to say that it's a huge struggle. What we need to do is to counsel the families of the women who are there, because there is so much resistance from the families about timing, about having to cook in the morning before they come and do a full job. It's just a very practical problem, especially in India and especially in an arts institution where you are expecting them to stay till the end of performances, so they often don't get home till 11. So it's a constantly evolving something that I have to do a one-on-one for everybody.
Absolutely, that's so true. And then, do you want to say? Go ahead.
I think academic institutions I'm talking about need to have programs where it facilitates women to break the internal shackles of guilt, internal shackles of low self-worth, internal shackles of low self-esteem, and to help them discover that there is a spirit of life which is in women, which they need to bring it for an expression. So I think these internal shackles, if they are broken, the women do a lot of, at least it takes them through life. So it needs to begin right in the educational institutions before it goes to the social institutions. But the way the world is going, there will be less women and more men. Men will not have women to marry. The way it is happening.
Very serious reality.
Yes. The birth ratio is diminishing quite substantially. So for women, so men will be struggling to beg women to marry them.
Or rape them.
Or
pick them up and rape them, gang rape them. That's the other one.
That's the other alternative which happens. So I think we have to look at it not only just from one, but many areas to get the momentum going to women to feel self-worth, less guilt, less low self-esteem, and to have a spirit that they are equally, they are unique in what they are.
That they are. They are beings.
They are.
Yes.
That's what's important.
When they need to feel that I am unique. I think how many women here feel they are unique? Here, she says they are privileged people.
Would somebody dare not to raise their hand?
All right.
Okay, at an institutional level, I think I've been heading organizations from 1994 onwards as, heading a business, heading a company. And one thing that I've always found is that I have always had to spend more time counseling the women, including things like calling up their parents and saying, because your daughter came home at 1 o'clock last night, she wasn't, screwing around with the cab driver. Okay? That pressure as an institution, where you have institutional leaders who are seized of the realities of the world we live in and who are willing to make that little effort, that's important. And I think that's where organizations and educational institutions actually have a role to play, because you need to sensitize, okay, your future generations of managers to the fact that if you need to counsel a woman or counsel her family or counsel her husband, that's part of your responsibility, because that woman comes out of a patriarchal system and she needs that little extra assurance. So, build an understanding of that in future generation of managers, and we can actually transform the world in a much shorter time frame.
Thank you.
See, in Flame, when I started Flame, I have an induction program. I started where the whole purpose was to tell women you have a right to say no, because it was the first time they were coming out of homes at the age of 17 and having a co-educational campus living there. And I said, you have a right to say no even if you don't want to hold somebody's hand. And I think we took that very seriously and did the program for 4 days to drill it into them that you have to you have a voice and you can say yes or a no, and you just don't have to accept it because you're supposed to.
You can say no, they may not listen, but you can say no. That's the point.
That's the beginning. That's a good beginning. So with that, I do want to open up for any questions or reflections from the audience. Please go ahead. Use the microphone. He's got the mic.
Last comment that we need to induct the girls. Don't you think that we need to do it more to boys and
Yes.
You need to educate men and women, okay? I didn't say you don't need to educate men. I said you need to support the women more. Now, I'm looking at a live situation where somebody is in a workplace. I'm saying as a woman, as a boss, even the men who are bosses in this room, you need to make sure that your women employees have that slight advantage, that little extra support they need. Not for a moment am I saying you don't need to educate men. I mean, everybody has gone hoarse about, saying you need to educate men. But how many of the women in this room have seen their brothers being treated equal to them? Is there anybody in this room who's got a brother who said, yes, my brother was treated equal to me? Yeah, okay, brilliant. This is less than we're talking about the rules. And the fact of the matter is, this is something that women need to make sure they do.
Women need to make sure they do it with their children.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yes. Come in. Okay, go ahead, sir, and Shalini.
I hope I don't get booed out from this room. I agree with everything that you have said, but there is a frame that is needed, and that is social structures have been built over millennia. So therefore, what we're experiencing today is far better. Among relationships between genders, there is a formal relationship that you're talking about, but there's also an informal relationship. I had a distant relative whose wife, when she was going to work, would say, you have birthed 10 brats, better bathe them before you go to work. And so, they really had 12 kids, so I don't know what about the other 2 kids. But so is there a difference between formal and informal relationships, that women have been powerful within the families, but because of the patriarchal society, that power did not come up? Thank you.
Professor Mehta.
I want to say something about it. We don't have other millennia to wait. Okay? We don't want to wait other millennia. I think we are kind of sick and tired, and I agree. It comes from the formal relationship, from the informal relationship, and I truly believe that being aware from both genders is something that's important, and asking, am I doing using the terminology and asking, do I do something that I want to do, or is it because I'm bound to things that are embedded in that are constrain me from the past? Am I saying something? Am I now at this moment oppressing my daughter? Am I now saying something to a woman that I wouldn't have said to a man? Am I interviewing a woman in a way that I would have never interviewed a man? And just by asking this question, just by you become more aware. And true, these are long processes, but we just don't want to wait anymore. And you know what? I think that as a society, we cannot afford waiting anymore. I think people here talk about corruption, and we talk, but that's the deepest corruption ever. Like 50% of the population, 50% of the emotions, the knowledge, the wisdom, lost. So we want it all, and we want it now.
That's a good caption.
So I have a question for you, and I'd like your response to it. Something very interesting happened a week or so ago. One of the most prominent publications in India asked a group of established intellectuals to name the up-and-coming intellectuals of the country. Now, what was interesting is that they asked a diverse group of men and women existing intellectuals about this, and all the women refused. So they were very puzzled. They said, how could this happen? Why is it that every single woman that we asked this question of, established woman intellectual, refused? One said, I don't like to be quoted. Another said, I don't believe in the concept. Another one said, success is a group effort. I don't like to single out individuals. And some refused to give the ideas. But the fact is, and you can go and check this out, it's on scroll.in, every single woman refused. To me, it is deeply perplexing. Am I missing something? Is this real? Would you agree with it? Would you disagree with it? Love to get your opinion.
You raised a very interesting question. And in some ways, I can quite understand why those women took that stance.
What would you do if you were asked to do the same thing?
I am more male than female, and so I would have no problems in having a point of view and sharing it. But that's my personality. A lot of women are very reluctant to put themselves in a position where they need to justify or explain why they've made a statement. And I think that comes to a large extent from the social context. Because in your private life, you're always justifying yourself. You're always justifying decisions. You're always, having to explain why you've done what you've done. And therefore, in a professional context, you try and avoid that. There are very few women, and I think probably the 4 women here are like the kind of women who will, you know, have guns, steel, and their own quantity of germs, right? But most women are not like that. And particularly, I guess, when it comes to the world of academics, you find that women are less willing to stick their neck out because, you know, there's this whole the men's club, and, you know, therefore there's always some kind of retribution. That's my guess.
Just a few days ago, I was told, can you name 5 women scientists? And I was told that the designer of the rocket booster, when it goes into space and you have a second booster, was done by women. But she herself, her contribution got completely masked, and it was attributed to a man. Because she did it, it was very, she herself did not take the credit for her what she had done. And that is what is happening. That women do not take credit for what they have done, they attribute it to somebody else, either by luck or to somebody or to somebody or somebody. Or they just don't voice it. Or for example, it was Dr. Varadarajan said Will Durant. But it was not only Will Durant, it's Will and Mary Durant.
Yes, yes.
But only his name is taken most of the time. So there is somewhere a feeling that women themselves don't claim the contribution they have made, and they just hand it over to somebody else. And I think it's the women who need to take a look and say, why would they do it such a thing? It may be social, it may be structural, it may be cultural. But finally, when you have to make a departure, you have to take a stand and say, this is mine, and I have done this. The women are ashamed of doing it. I think that needs to go. It will only go when women feel self-worth and feel and can state that this is what I have done, and not feel ashamed or humble or a little hesitant. Yeah, they feel hesitant. I remember I started the first women managers program in India. In the first program, I had 45 participants. 3 were at the threshold of entering a board, and they were hesitating to take the board membership because that was a breaking through a ceiling which was there. Women were not on the board at that point of time. And I think I take really pride in saying that after the program was over, all 3 women got onto the board. So it was, we have to get back to self-worth.
I need last word from you. No, not me. I'm saying anyone here, if you want to say it, and then we need to know.
Monica, you started to use.
No, I just want to say also, Shailendra, that social media and the backlash women get on social media that immediately makes us into prostitutes, immediately goes on to our body parts, and it is so vile, that is a huge factor. I mean, look at what somebody like Romila Thapar gets. I get it all the time. And it's immediately physical, violent, and vulgar. And many of us take the stand, let's not get into it. Thank you all.
So with that, I'm going to say, I'll be very direct, simple, confident. I'm sorry, but I do need to, we are running late, we want it all, we want it now. And seriously, we don't care what you think, so either be with us or rest in peace. That's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now we disperse for a coffee break and we meet back at 11 o'clock for 3 parallel tracks. If you have chosen consumer behavior, please meet at SH4. If you've chosen strategic marketing, please meet at SH3, and marketing management, SH5.